been teaching sewing for many years. Let's talk about how to thread your machine. I'm using basic all-purpose thread here. When you're first starting to sew, that's what you're going to want. You don't want any fancy cotton-covered thread or top stitching thread, metallic threads, nothing like that. When you're beginning, you just want basic all-purpose thread. And I'm going to thread my machine by placing the thread on the spool pin. And I'm going to put the cap on there that keeps my thread in place. I've got my thread unwinding off the bottom here. Some machines have a spool pin that stands vertically and you drop your thread onto it. When you have that, if your machine manual specifies which way the thread should unwind, follow that. But if it doesn't say anything, it really doesn't matter which way it's unwinding. On the side spools like this, the machines generally do better with the thread unwinding off the bottom of the spool. And then this machine has handy little number guides here about what I'm going to do to thread. But all machines are going to follow the same basic principle of going up and then back down through some kind of tension disc, back up and back down. The reason it has this kind of W-shaped path or M-shaped path is because by bending the thread, you're going to be able to control the tension on it and you're going to be able to keep the thread from breaking. Think about how much easier it is to break a thread that you are pulling taut in a straight line between 2 points than it would be to break a thread that you have to pull around something. So, to thread this machine, I'm going to go around here and then I just follow my little arrows. This takes me through the tension disc up here. I'm going to come down. This will get me, this loop here gets me threaded through the take-up lever, and that's why my machine has a little window here where I can see the lever and I can make sure the thread's gone through it. And then there's usually right above the needle a little guide bar, or sometimes it looks like a loop that holds the thread so that it feeds smoothly right into the needle. On many machines, you're going to have to, at this point, go ahead and hand thread the needle. And it's usually good to kind of make sure you've got a sharp cut at the end of the thread and even maybe lick the end of the thread, and then you just push it through the needle there. Now, as I've said, this particular machine has a automatic threader. So instead, how I normally thread, I would come around the side, cut my thread in there, and I just push this button and it does the threading of the needle for me, which is pretty cool. In addition to threading the top of your machine, you also have to thread the bobbin. Now, if you have a top-loading bobbin, you're going to be thinking about the letter P. As the bobbin faces you with the thread down, it should form the letter P. I'm going to release the cover over my bobbin here. On some machines, there will be a tray that slides out to access the bobbin, and I'm going to put my bobbin in, and on my machine, there's a little disc and a little pathway to wrap the bobbin thread around, and then it gets cut off, and on this particular machine, you can begin to sew at that point. Now, a lot of machines will want you to pull the bobbin thread up before you begin sewing, and I'll show you how to do that. To do that, you'll hold your top thread with one hand and you will turn the flywheel with the other hand. One full rotation, and then you'll pull and you can see the bobbin thread comes out the bottom. Now that you've got your threads, you want them to the back of the machine for you to start sewing. And we're going to do one little straight stitch. So I'm going to take my fabric here. I'm going to line the fabric up in my machine. I want it just past where the needle is going to hit it, but I don't want it so far in that there'll be a big gap at the beginning of my fabric. I'm going to lower the presser foot once I've got it lined up. And then I'm just going to press the pedal to start stitching. As I stitch, I am going to keep my hand loosely on the fabric to kind of guide it and keep it lined up so that I've got the seam appearing in the same place. as my guide, I've got the edge of the presser foot here is what I'm lining my fabric up to. In addition, my particular machine has this speed control on the top, and some machines do have that. So if I set it, for example, to the lowest setting, I can push the presser foot all the way down, pedal to the metal, and I am only going to be able to go this fast. If I've got it as fast as it'll go, that's pedal to the metal. And you can see it's a little harder to control when it goes faster. So if your machine does have that option and you are a new sewer, go ahead and set it to the middle or even the slowest setting so you can get a feel for how this all works. Now when I get to the end, I am going to cut my threads, which my machine will do that for me. But if your machine doesn't do that for you, what you're going to want to do is to turn the flywheel until your needle's all the way up and until you can see that take-up lever all the way up. And then you will raise the presser foot, you would pull out to the side, and you'd clip those threads, leaving a little bit of thread so that, again, the machine doesn't unthread when you start sewing again. And that right there is how you sew straight line stitching.